Hello there, and welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash. I'm your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now, however confident, powerful and strident you may think you are, there are many situations that you will undoubtedly encounter in life where you feel a little tender, a little delicate and not really up to the moment where you need to speak up and make yourself heard. I mean, how many of us go through life and we encounter situations where we accept poor service in a consumer situation, or we accept something less than perfect from our co-workers, our seniors, our subordinates, the people who we encounter in our lives. You know, I don't know about you, but there have been many situations where I've accepted a situation and afterwards said to myself, I wish I'd said something. I wish I had done something. I wish I'd stood up for myself a little bit differently. So today I'm going to talk about how you can be a more assertive chap in your life journey. To help you on your journey to be a more assertive chap, I've looked deeply within my own life and the circumstances that I've encountered, how I've dealt with them, how I would like to have dealt with them in hindsight, and I've put together 8 tips that I think will help you get a better and more assertive approach to your life. Now, my tip number 1 is to understand your triggers, because we have all got a different trigger which makes us become unhappy with a situation. It might be that, you know, if, like myself, you are really annoyed or triggered by being kept waiting in a restaurant, you know, if there's an excessively long time before people acknowledge me, take my order, and then the service is long and convoluted, that really grinds my gears. And I've been known to berate staff in restaurants and actually make quite an issue of it. I understand, looking back on those situations, that by me becoming belligerent to the staff, it didn't help the situation at all. There is little point at shouting at people who don't control the situation that they're in, and they can't make it any better for you. So now I actually make a special point of building in a little bit more tolerance if I'm kept waiting in a consumer situation. Another situation that really annoys me is where, you know, people who should be looking after me don't do so. Whether I'm standing at a counter waiting to speak to a sales assistant who's making a personal phone call. You know, in the past, I might have made a comment. Today, I understand it's not going to help the situation. So what's the point of winding somebody up and turning it into something that it isn't? Know your triggers and control the way that you react. Unless, you know, what's the point? My tip number 2 is to find a way in which you can assertively give constructive feedback. Now, let's go back to that scenario. I'm in a restaurant, I'm unhappy with the service I've been provided. As I say, there's no point in shouting at the waiter. They have probably, you know, their lack of service has been provided by a systemic failure within the restaurant. It's important to address your issues with somebody who can change that situation or make it better for you. So ask to speak to the manager, ask to speak to the owner, and then you tell them in an assertive manner, you know, that your minimum expectations of service have not been met on this occasion, and that has curtailed your enjoyment of your experience, and that has affected your customer satisfaction. Give them an opportunity to absorb what you've said. Because you're speaking in a constructive way, you know, they will then have an opportunity to do something about it. They can apologize, which, you know, in most cases, that's all we really want, isn't it? An apology if we're unhappy with a situation. Or they can reduce the bill, do anything that was within their power to bring back that situation and win you back over as a customer. Now, obviously, these things are only going to be possible if your expectations are reasonable in the first place. You know, if you've got grandiose ideas that you should have been treated like a king, you know, that's not reasonable. So nobody's going to ameliorate the situation if they think, you know, that your expectation has been above the norm. So be conscious. You have to have, you know, a standard level of expectation and give them that chance to do something about it. Now, my tip number 3 to being a more assertive chap in your life is to walk a mile in the shoes of the person or the organisation that you take issue with. Being assertive is not simply about becoming aggressive, about having a hissy fit, complaining, shouting, squaring up to somebody and, airing this dirty laundry. Take a moment to understand why this situation has arisen before you start demanding reparations or a change in the activity that's going on. This can be particularly useful if, for instance, you're dealing with a co-worker who you perceive is not pulling their weight. They've been skiving off work. Take a moment to understand perhaps why that's happening. Why have they been finishing work early? Before you start shouting your mouth off, you might find out that they've got a care requirement for an elderly relative or a child, that they have to, undertake these extra duties, but they don't want to tell anybody because they think it's embarrassing. So before you start doing anything, take a moment to understand the situation that you're about to deal with. When you've got a clearer picture of what's going on, then you can address it. You can then lay down perhaps some ground rules with your co-worker to let them understand that you need to know if they're going to be leaving work early or if they're going to be sending more work your way. That way you understand why it's happening and you're ready for it. Now, my tip number 4 for being more assertive when it comes to dealing with situations where you feel unhappy or you receive dissatisfaction is be prepared to negotiate. Have options in your mind. Now, let's go back to that restaurant scenario. We've been totally, miffed or unhappy by the service we've received. We've asked the waiter to bring the manager over to the table because we calmly and assertively want to point out to them our evening has been ruined by the poor service we've received. Now you need to have a goal in your mind, what you intend to achieve by this conversation. If it's merely you're going to have a shouting session with this chap, what's the point? Your blood pressure is going to go up, the night's going to be worse than it was already, you just as well leave and not have that talk. But if you're going to have a challenging talk with somebody, at least have a positive end result after that talk. Have in your mind some negotiation. When the manager comes over to the table, you tell them, I'm not happy, it's ruined our night. I don't intend to pay for this meal. Now, if you start off saying, I'm not going to pay for my meal, that's an end to it, you've got nowhere to go. That outcome is clearly not going to be acceptable to the manager or the owner. It's their livelihood. You've made your point, but still, they need to make money. If you say, I'm not going to pay for it, where's the conversation going to go? There is no middle ground. If they say, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but this is the bill, you have to pay it, then you have somewhere else you can meet. Tell them, okay, right, how about if I have a 50% reduction off this meal because my night has been negatively affected? Have other options as well. Tell them, all right, how about having a free dessert or 50% off the next time I come here? Let me see if you've improved your service by then. By having options that you're prepared to go to, not acquiescing immediately and just saying, okay, then if you're not going to pay for it, I will pay for it, and just storming out. What's happened there? Your night's been ruined and you still paid full price for the bill. Have options in your mind. Common ground that you are prepared to reach with the other party. Then you have somewhere that you are working towards when you have this challenging conversation. My tip number 5 is a really important one, and that is to stay calm. Because many situations when you're required to demonstrate your assertiveness will be highly charged. They'll be emotional. You will feel upset, and if you become a rampaging Hulk, shouting, screaming, gesticulating, positive things will not fall out from it, I can assure you. All right, I've spent 30 plus years in professions, the military, law enforcement, where confrontation and assertiveness have been necessary on a daily basis. And I've seen it happening so many times. Once you start escalating, once you start raising your voice, shouting, waving your arms around, adopting a domineering stance so that you impress upon the other person that you're in charge and you're being assertive, believe me, they tend to do the same thing in response. If you start shouting and becoming aggressive, two things will happen to the other person. They will either retract away from you and then the situation ends without any resolution, or they will escalate their behavior in response to yours, and the situation is likely to become a little bit more kinetic than you may have bargained for. Now, to arrive at that mutually agreeable concord over the situation that you find yourself in, it's far better to remain in control of your emotions, or at the very least, make it appear as if you are. You may be, raging on the inside, but the fact is you don't need to display that. You need to speak in a calm, ordinary volume, because if you start shouting, so will the other person. Doesn't end well. Speak calmly, but get your point across in an assertive manner. Don't be put off if the other person starts to raise their voice, and follow them. You keep your volume ordinary and controlled. And always remember, politeness is key. If you start swearing, if you start being aggressive, the other person will do the same. If you are unswervingly polite in your manners, you will find that it's very difficult for somebody else, the other party, to be unpolite, abrupt or rude to you. If you're courteous, they'll tend to be the same. And that's the route that you want to take. Now, my tip number 6 when it comes to being an assertive chap is make this about you, not about them. People are sensitive, and if you tell them that they have done something wrong, they've fallen short of the accepted mark, and that you've called them out on it, they're likely to become emotional, they're likely to become offended, and they will react in a way which isn't conducive to getting to the destination that you want to get to. Either telling a colleague that you're unhappy with their performance in work, or the service you've been provided in a restaurant. It's not going to help. So make it about you. That can be as simple as saying to somebody, that waiter in the restaurant, look, I make it a point of, if I have to wait for more than half an hour before I get service, I really find that unacceptable, and I want to make a complaint. So you're really making it about you, not making it about them. You'll find that you get a better response from people if you do that, if you turn the situation on yourself. And you know what? If you think about it, when you make a complaint, being assertive it is about you, isn't it? It is something's happened and it's fallen short of your standard. So this is a really good way of approaching it, not offending people at the get-go. You enter into that conversation and you're explaining to them it's something that you see as wrong rather than something that they have done. And then people tend to be better when you start to address that issue. Now, my tip number 7 is to be persistent. Do not give up easily. Now, when you raise a complaint with somebody or you address an issue with, say, a co-worker, you'll initially be met by denial. They'll be unhappy that you've raised this issue, they'll perhaps deny it, and they'll want to end the conversation. This is the point that you need to be assertive. Do not give up. Tell them again, look, this is not going to go away, we need to address it. If it's clearly not working in the direction you're going, perhaps you need to reframe the situation. Tell them if it's a customer service scenario that you're in, if you've asked for your money back, tell them, all right, then I'll accept a store credit, or I'll expect an adjustment to the bill in the restaurant to reflect the fact that the service I've had tonight has been very poor. I don't expect to see the desserts on the bill. Reframe it so that they've got options, but be persistent. Do not just make the complaint and let them walk away having made no adjustment to the situation and the problem still goes on. Now, my tip number 8 is your body language. Remember, assertiveness is merely a demonstration of your confidence and your strength of character to the person that you're talking to. So it's important that you realize the way that you hold yourself, you carry yourself, will have a really strong bearing on the way you're perceived. If you slump-shouldered, you're looking down and you're mumbling, that doesn't look assertive. Stand tall, throw your shoulders back, hold your head high, speak in a clear and loud yet reasonable manner, and you'll be taken seriously. If you look professional and you mean business, you will be perceived that way by the person that you're engaging with. Never use profanity. Don't resort to the lowest common denominator. All right, speak reasonably, be polite. Always remember you are a gentleman. You carry yourself with poise and bearing, and you will receive the respect that deserves from the person that you're speaking to. Always remember, assertiveness is not about being the loudest, most forthright or outspoken person in a group or in the room. Never mistake assertiveness for aggressiveness. I have seen it so many times in my professional life, and it never ends well. Always remember, stay calm, stay in control, stay reasonable, and the outcome that you seek is more likely to come at the end of your interaction. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this discussion today on being a more assertive chap in your life. If you have, if it's been of use, I would encourage you to give us a thumbs up. And if you're not already a subscriber to the Chap's Guide channel, click that red button and come on this journey with us. Until the next time, take care of yourselves, remain assertive in your life, stand up for yourself, and I will see you very soon.